Here's a quick run through on your MoleMash with TinyDB materials. If you click this link, it opens up this file here, and we're going to go through and code this today. For the most part, this is already been coded for you, so we are just going to go through it and look at the examples here. So our objective for today is to learn a little bit more about persistent data with a tiny database. Persistent data is data that persists between different uses of the app. So we are going to be using our tiny database component to do that. In this particular application, we're going to be using it to store the highest score of that user on that device. So when they come back in, they're going to be able to see what their highest score was. In this lesson, we're going to create an app that saves the player's highest score between sessions. We're going to learn about the concept of persistent data, and we're going to learn how to access App Inventor's simple database component. Watch this quick video here. It just talks a little bit about the program itself, and it doesn't do any of the coding, but it kind of gives you an idea of what a database will do for your program. Here is a download template that you'll need. So when you select, it's going to open up your template that is already pre-downloaded into your App Inventor program. So we have that to work on. The user interface has been built for you already, and so you'll be able to take a look at that here as well. So we can go into our designer to take a look at the user interface. One thing I wanted you to look at were the visibility features of this particular program. Our vertical arrangement one, which houses all this information, this label, text box, and button, is visible to us. You can select that toggle, and you can check the visibility to being true and false. Like this horizontal arrangement down here, there is something there. We don't know what it is because it has not been set as visible. So you can use that visibility toggle to enhance your programs a bunch. As we go down here, the label, you'll have an instruction label, you have a text box, you're going to have a play button. If it's the user's first time playing the game, the player will be welcomed by name and then given instructions on to whack the Android moving around the screen. If the player is a returning player, the player is welcomed by their name and their highest score. The way we're going to be doing that is the use of a tiny database. We'll be storing that information, and we will have a notifier to report out to the user their status in the game. Here's a quick code walkthrough. We do notice that the button save.click and the welcome user procedure have not been coded out, so we will be doing those here shortly. The variables have that we need for this program, we will need a name, a score, and a highest score variable, and they have been initialized for us. Here is your starting app. So when we hit the button.click, it's going to go into this control statement to check to see first if the text box is empty. So if there is no name in there, it's going to tell the user through a notifier to type in your name. If the text box is not empty, we go into the else clause here, and it's going to set up our user interface and call our welcome user, which we have yet to code. But the setup for the user interface, this says here that your vertical arrangement is going to be off, that your canvas is going to, the visibility will be off. Your canvas will be visible, your label score is going to be visible, and your horizontal arrangement 1 is going to be visible. So that vertical arrangement number 1 is set to false, like we noticed here. Horizontal arrangement number 1 is set vertical arrangement 1, sorry. So that is set to visible. Once we hit the play button, that area will go away. We will lose that visibility to that text box because we no longer need this. So when we hit that start game, this visibility will go away. So we don't need to have that in our way. Moving the Android, this was based upon your MoleMash application, so we have already covered this material. How we keep score when your Android is touched, we take our global variable and we have what it was plus 1, reassign that. So if we're at 9, add 1 to that makes 10 and reassign the value of global score to the new score of 10. We're going to report out a vibration to let the user know that they touched the Android. We're going to call the procedure update score, and we're going to call move Android. Your update score just simply adjusts that label score text to give the user some updates on their score. We have a button reset feature that's going to call this reset procedure. It's going to reset your global score back to 0. It's going to call your update score so we can reset our labels, and it's going to welcome the user. The way that a tiny database stores its information is using a simple tag value format. The tag will be associated with a value, and this tag is case sensitive, so score with a capital S and score with a lower s will be different tags. The value is the data itself. It can be a string like an address, it can be a number, or it can be a list. When we are manipulating the tiny database, we are using two main calls to it, a store value and a get value blocks. So the store value is used to put data into the tiny database. It has a tag slot and a value to store slot. The tag slot is where the tag goes, and the value slot is where the value goes. Lots of times we do store information based upon a variable as a tag, because it changes throughout the course of your application. So this is more or less what we would be doing. Retrieving the value. Now that we have stored it, after it has been stored, we can call our database to get that value. In this particular case, the values are going to be stored based upon the user's name. Now, if there is no value there, that empty block there is going to be a default value. So saving a new high score. We're going to try to code the button save event handler. Here is some pseudocode. When that button save is clicked, if score is greater than highest score, then store the user's score in the tiny database using their name as the tag. Set the user's highest score to their current score. Alert the user with a notifier that they have a new high score. Else, in the situation that score is not greater than highest score, tell the user with a notifier that what their current high score is. So let's code that up. This is your button. Sorry, this is your button save feature. So we're coding up this button save. All right, first off, we need to get the if then else statement going, our control statement. We're going to evaluate whether or not our score is larger than the high score. We're going to evaluate that statement. If our score is higher than the global highest score, then we need to report out that and save information that we have the new highest score. So we need to store some values from our tiny database. We're going to store a couple sets of information. First, we need to store our high score so we can maintain that. So that one is kind of storing the highest score to itself. That will keep and maintain our highest score as we play this game, and the highest score does get changed throughout the course of this game. Then we need to call another store value. This one here, we're going to store the value that the person earned. So based upon their name, what is their score? We're storing that. So we're storing two different sets of information with our database. First, we are storing the highest score, and then we're storing individual scores. And we're going to compare those and have some sort of result for that. Now, if we are in this then clause, this means that the global score that we just had is greater than the global highest score. So therefore, we have the new highest score, so we need to set that. So since we now have the highest score, it is going to be reflected here. Then we need to tell the user with a notifier that they have the new highest score. So we're going to just simply show an alert with a notice. And it's going to just tell them, congrats, you have the new high score. Okay, now if we did not get the highest score, we need to report out their current score. So we're going back into our notifier. We're going to show another notice here. This is in the else clause. This one just simply says that it'll just report out to the user their highest score, so what they have had. So we're going to need a couple bits of information here to report out. So they're just going to say the current. Okay, so since they didn't get that, they're going to report out what the current high score is. Let's go back into our instructions here. And again, it says here, if you need help coding this block, it's at the bottom of this lesson. So if we get stuck, we can always refer to there. Retrieving now, this is when we have the get values from our database, and they're going to be built into our welcome user procedure. So using the button that we just created here, the button save, saves it. Now the welcome user is going to report back out to the user some information based on what's stored. So we are going to code up that next. The welcome user procedure says set the highest score to the value retrieved from the database. We're going to pull up our highest score. If highest score is 0, then we're setting the label score to welcome them and tell the user to whack the Android to score some points. So if score is 0, that means that we have not played this game before, most likely. So we need to give them some instructions. And if they have played it before and didn't score anything, maybe they needed to know that they should whack the Android to score some points. However, if highest score does not equal 0, that means that they have done this before, and we don't need to give them these instructions. We just simply need to welcome them back and tell them their highest score. So let's code up the welcome user procedure. So welcome user. We need to, again, it says set the score based upon our database. So we need to set our highest score to what we found in our database. So we're going to now get information from our database. So get values. Now I'm going to make a little room here for myself to work. The tag that we're going to be pulling from is going to be the user's name, and that is stored in the variable name. So that's who we're welcoming. It's an individual welcome. Now, this would not make sense to me if I'm looking at a score and if there's no value and it gives me some sort of a blank there. I don't know what that means. So I would rather have, if there is no value as a name, meaning that that person typing in their name is the first time they're using it, I would like for them to know that they have a score of 0, not just some sort of a blank. Okay, next is we need to do our control statement, if then else. And we need to evaluate that highest score feature. So if the global highest score is 0, if it's 0, then they have not played that game before. So we need to welcome them. So we need to go to our label score, and we need to set its text to welcome that user. Okay, so we need to welcome the user by their name. And give them some basic instructions. Okay, so that's if this is a new user. We need to also welcome the pre-existing user. So I'm going to duplicate that, make it a little easier on myself. I don't think this is all going to work well. So instead of saying welcome, maybe we say welcome back. Have their name, and then say, instead of instructions, say your high score is. And let's add in one more box here to report out global highest score. All right, let's put this up on our companion and test this out. Okay. So we have our user interface here. Type in your name. Let's find maybe something that we've never used before. Let's go Ian. Start game. Welcome, Ian. I probably should put a space there. Whack the Android to score some points. So 1, 2. Okay, so I've scored 5 points. I'm going to save the score. It says congrats, you have the new high score. So for Ian, 5 is the high score. Let's refresh this. All right, again, let's go in there and see if Ian's score is saved. Ian, start game. It says your score is 5. So it does remember that. Another cool feature is, remember, this is saving based upon the username. So if I go in here and refresh this one more time, and I have played this maybe at a different name, maybe Bob, it says here my high score is 12. So it remembers the high score based upon the user. Pretty neat feature of App Inventor. Here is a little enhancement that you might find is kind of fun, that you do have a clock component, so you can report out sort of the time as to what reports out. So if you wanted to build that real fast, it's not too hard to do. I'm going to show you that to you real quick. So what it says here you need a second tag. You don't need a different database. You can use the same database that you have been using, only adding this little bit in here to kind of report out when you earn that high score. Kind of fun. So for that, we're going to be doing this in your button save feature right here. We already have ourselves a clock component put into this Android timer, so we have that. We're going to call our Android timer to format time based on an instance. Here it is. And we're going to have it call our timer at that moment. Right here now. So I'm going to report out here. Maybe I'm going to join this up. A little space here at the end so it doesn't. Okay, so then let's do another one here. We can current high score is. You're there, and I'm going to put a couple of different boxes in here. Now, I don't like how sometimes they mash everything up together, so I can put this in here as just a space holder and create a little distance between this information and what comes here next, which is this timer, this formatting of their timer. So it's going to report out when you earn that. So let's refresh. Refresh. Oh, looks like that's reset. Okay, so let's test this out again here. Let's put my name in. Start game. Your high score is 12. Now, I might not get my high score. Maybe I only have a 5. I'm going to save my score, but it does give me your current high score is 12, and then that's the time in which you saw that it was earned. So if I keep going, maybe I can get to that 13 and see another report out. 13. Okay, this should be a new high score. So I save it. It says here, congrats, you have the new high score at, and it gives me that time in which I earned that. That's a neat little enhancement. And if you needed to, here is the solution code down below. All right, that's just a quick run through on your MoleMash with your TinyDB.